Good morning, Mr. Boehlert. How are you?
Hey, good morning. Good. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here. So you wrote a lovely piece on on how the media is treating this Ginni Thomas story. It should be huge, and it's not.
It absolutely should be huge.
Yeah, it honestly reminds me of just a month or so ago when we found out Trump smuggled top secret documents out of the White House, right? Yeah. That was like a day story, maybe a day and a half, and the press came out and said, well, the Trump team was frenzied. They were making a hasty exit. They had their attention elsewhere. He was smuggling top secret documents. If that had been an Obama or a Clinton, it would have been, a 9-month story. It seems very similar. Ginni Thomas story broke on Thursday. To date, the Wall Street Journal hasn't put that story on page one. If you look at cable news is just kind of slow walking it. I count, I went and looked at the transcripts, about 100 mentions of Clarence Thomas over the first 3 days. And to put that in context, when the beginning of the month, when the cable news was losing its mind about rising gas prices, that got 1,200 mentions in a week. Yeah. So rising gas prices 10 times more important than the sitting Supreme Court justice's wife trying to overturn an election. And she has open access to the Trump White House. She's not just some conservative activist. Meanwhile, Clarence Thomas was the lone dissent, arguing that White House related documents should not be handed over to the January 6th. Right. And then in another lone dissent he had in February on another 2020 election case, he was just spreading lies about mail-in ballots that sounded just like Ginni Thomas's lies. Ginni Thomas is QAnon, period. Yeah. I mean, this is not, let's try to save the Trump presidency. She's talking about watermark ballots. She's talking about every InfoWar nonsense. Yeah. And my God, so some of the press says, she's just the wife. Well, we can't assign, blame to remember the 2016 election? You remember the Clinton Foundation?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, last time when powerful Democratic couples happened to run an A-run charity, but it gets slimed as being something nefarious. I mean, that was an 8-month story. So the press, again, look, they just don't. Yes, they will cover these stories as they pop up, these direct assaults on democracy, the Republican Party trying to do away with free and fair elections. They'll cover those, but it's never a blockbuster story.
Yeah, it obviously.
And I'm sorry, real quick.
No, go.
So this story was basically, Washington Post did a good job. New York Times was a little slow. CNN, CBS, CNN, and Washington Post kind of broke the story on Thursday. And so when you have multiple news organizations breaking the same story at the same time, that means it's a leak. This came from the 1-6 committee. It was kind of handed to these news organizations on a silver platter, which is fine. So then the question is, what's the follow-up? What's the independent? What's the shoe leather reporting they do on their own? And the follow-up reporting has been pretty slim.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This should be, Benghazi on steroids at this point. Yeah. And they're not even trying.
Not even close.
Yeah.
And again, you mentioned Senator Klobuchar. She got to speak on ABC this week, but again, it was not really. Meet the Press had a 2-session roundtable, and 45 seconds were devoted to talking about Clarence and Ginni Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, Klobuchar went on to say this about the Supreme Court at the moment.
The entire integrity of the court is on the line here. And they had better speak out on this, because you cannot have a justice hearing cases related to this election. And in fact, the ethics rules that apply to all the other federal judges say that if it involves a family member, appearance of impartiality, they have to recuse themselves. So not only should he recuse himself, but this Supreme Court badly needs ethics rules.
Yeah. I mean, it is astonishing to me that the Supreme Court doesn't go by the other federal judges' ethics.
It's just amazing. And Chief Justice Roberts, I mean, he is just the captain of the Titanic. Even before this, The public standing of the Supreme Court is down to 40%. For decades, the Supreme Court was at 80%. It was up next to the U.S. military in terms of respect. It has plummeted. It all started with the Florida recount, but certainly in the last 5 years. And Justice Roberts gave this incredibly shrieky defensive speech last year, saying, "Oh, we don't need to be regulated. We can do this all on our own. We're the Supreme Court." And this happens, total silence. Clarence Thomas won't say a word. Judge Roberts won't say a word. They're fine with this. All this beltway chatter about, oh, Judge Roberts is so concerned with the integrity of the court. It's his legacy. That's what bullshit.
We can't.
Oh my! Yay! We got an S-bomb.
They're doing this shadow docket up and down the line. They don't care about democracy. They don't care about any of this stuff. And so the idea that the DC press looks to Judge Roberts and says, well, he's serious. He's in charge. He wouldn't want this court to be stained. He couldn't care less. Could not care less.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, this court. Yeah, with all the shadow dockets they've been doing this past year, it's an inordinate amount of them. And it seems crazy to me, like especially the Texas abortion law that just blew my mind.
And just last week, this Wisconsin redistricting. I mean, people who watched that was an absolute Hail Mary that Republicans in Wisconsin threw to the Supreme Court. Even people who were cynical and jaded about the Supreme Court looked at that and said, "Oh, okay, yeah, I guess they can try." Shadow docket, no explanation, boom, done. Signed, sealed, and delivered. So again. People are being naive, particularly I think the elite media being naive about the Supreme Court. And by God, we haven't even talked about poor Judge Jackson and last week and the circus she had to endure. And so there's a connection. There's absolutely a direct thread between those confirmation hearings and Ginni Thomas and the rise of QAnon, connected to the Supreme Court.
I mean, you pointed out in one of your tweets in 1991, one of her aunts told the Washington Post that Thomas was so nice we forgot he was black, added he treated her so well all of his other qualities made up for his being black. Oh, my.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ginni Thomas has a very bizarre history. I mean, the New Yorker did an amazing feature this year. New York Times Sunday Magazine did a good piece. She was in a cult. She was in a cult right before she met Clarence Thomas. She took him to some of the deprogramming meetings that she was going to. Now she is just absolutely gone down the rabbit hole in terms of QAnon. And again, this isn't, husband, wife, gosh, everyone's allowed to have their own interests, and we can't, anyone in the Republican Party understands they're a 2-for-1 package. Again, she had open access to the Trump White House thanks to Mark Meadows, who's another conspiratorialist. So it's really shocking. But again, I guarantee you, if we this week we will see almost no new coverage about this story. It was a 48-hour cycle, and everyone is just going to move on, and it's astounding.
Yeah, I mean, they did move on from Trump taking the boxes from the White House. So
2-day story.
Yeah.
2-day story.
It's wow.